Hello and welcome to this impromptu Stampscapes Live. We have a Horizon card. I'm just doing the second version of this right here, which used the Seaside Cove Small with a piece of lapis lazuli and a white moon up top, but I wanted to try it with a holographic moon with the larger Seaside Cove here, so I'd have more water area. I do think that it looked pretty cool in the sandy area below on that first attempt there from the Friday Night Live, but I wanted to try it with this one right here. Okay, now I've pre-blocked out my white on here. You can see I've done a really light impression of the Seaside Cove so I can get the gist of the layout of that stamp, you know, like where this wave is kind of rolling up onto the shoreline down here. And then I've blocked out some area down here with the white Brilliance pigment ink, water-based pigment ink. And then I've used some of that white throughout here. I do want some of this glittery type of holographic to be showing through, but I want it to be blocked off on the edge so I can color the edges to give it more of a vignette type of surrounding border around that holographic. So let's see how this works out here. All right, now I'm not going to try and register this perfectly on here, but I did mark off a little area on my stamp where I did that test or the registration impression, I should say. Black Brilliance ink over white Brilliance ink. All right. Hopefully that's enough ink on here. I didn't re-ink that, and this is a pretty big stamp here. All right, let's see, get my registration marks down here. That represents the edge of my paper, and then I'm going roughly, sorry about my head getting in the way, go about right here. And with large stamps, you want to get a good amount of leverage. I'm not trying to press on this whole thing just with one amount of pressure centralized. I go left, top, bottom, and then I go back. And then I have plenty of paper underneath, blotter paper to cushion and to make my paper contoured at the bottom of this really large stamp, large and super detailed stamp. All right. And there we have it. There's the image right in there, like so. And that should dry pretty fast because it's the Brilliance black pigment ink like that. And I could see all of my imagery right in there. Okay, you can see the waves. Now this is why I do that pre-stamping and pre-inking with the white onto my surface right here, because I can really define these areas on here further with the use of I like to use colored pencils. You can use other types of media, but this is really easy to color with a softer medium with the white pigment ink laid down. If you don't do that, you can't really apply colored pencils to this type of surface because it's just too slick. So dried white pigment ink kind of provides a little bit of a toothed surface, in other words, a textured surface, so that the colored pencil can have something to grab onto, okay? Now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of defining this image just like it is right up here. It's stamped out a little bit lighter than what I would have wanted, but that's okay because we're going to be coloring this in anyway with a lot of tone. But I still want all of these lighter areas within the design to read as light I don't know, whatever, crests of waves in this case. So what we're doing is we're putting this shade right underneath them like this. And what you do is you just retain that lighter area like that, and you make the area around it darker. It gets a little bit more streaky up here, and there's larger shadows underneath my larger waves. Like this. Now, I'm using black right here, but I will go in with some additional color too. Now I want a lot of that holographic glitter to be like that on the horizon, so I didn't go into this right in here with a lot of white pigment ink, but you can see it right here and right here. Now this whole area is going to get toned in quite a bit with some black pigment ink, so I don't really need to go in and take the time to define that darkness with a colored pencil. The colored pencil is just going to take much longer to do, so we'll leave the larger areas just for application with a white cotton ball. A larger applicator, in other words. A wider one. But once you get the white kind of laid out, pre-stamped or pre-applied, and this kind of shading right here, it doesn't take too long to do because we really don't have to apply a lot of color to this because a lot of the dynamic nature of this material already provides us with the color and texture and pattern and all that. So we don't need to add in things that we would normally have to or amplify if we were just stamping on a white piece of paper. We couldn't get all this type of effect anyway, but you know, we're usually utilizing things like color and value, texture, and everything like that. But a lot of that is already kind of taken care of, so you're just kind of reapplying and a lot of the light and shade. So in other words, you know, most of the things that I'm applying on here are just black and white media, so it does make for reasonably quick application. Okay, let's move into these shadows right here. These shadows right here are fairly anemic, so what we'll do is we'll give them a little bit more richness and texture. And I guess temperature too, being that this is blue. It's kind of a warm blue right here, this lighter, slightly greenish tinged blue. Use any colors you want though, and a blend of them always makes things potentially richer as a result. All right, so there's some blue tones in there like that. You can see that it looks a little bit more three-dimensional as well sometimes, or a lot of times. And let's move into this grassy, not grassy, but sandy area. Let me see right here. Let's add in, actually, let's do this right now. I was thinking about adding in some rocky, pebbly texture down here after maybe coloring, but I thought, let's get that down because while this dries really fast on here, if I have a really dark impression and I go across it with a colored pencil, it might smear a little bit, which is okay. I just don't want it to smear too much. So let's get this laid down right now. And then what we'll do is we'll allow it to dry a few seconds. Okay, yeah, we'll let that dry a little bit. We'll move into getting another blue in here maybe. This is a A little bit of a grayish blue. I went all blue on my previous test. But let's use a little bit of warmth down here with some brown tones. Let's see, I should have sharpened this one right here, but let's see if we can get some coverage right here. So we're changing temperatures a little bit right here, giving the scene a little bit more temperature variation. I think my tan is a little bit, well, it might be okay. Some of your colored pencil, if you're working with colored pencils, sometimes it's a little bit too, they're not soft enough, so they don't apply on top of the pigment ink very well, the white pigment ink. This one seems to work pretty good. Getting a nice range of tones is always potentially richer looking than using a singular color. Like, for example, if you're doing something like sand or something like that, and you're looking for a color within your selection of pencils that says something like sand or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I would use that one, but I would also use a lot of other tones to represent, you know, the darker area of that object or region. So like right in here, this darker area right in here, I'm using a darker brown. Speaking of that, I haven't really, let's see, let's go into some of our darker areas on here. So this is what we have for the sand down here. Let's go and see if we can get another layer of hue with our darker blue in the shadow areas. Yeah, it looks like it's applying pretty good. You can only go with so many layers usually on the, you're not really applying it on top of the holographic vinyl sticker paper. You're really applying it over the top of the holographic, I mean the Brilliance white pigment ink that's been applied. So the Brilliance is the thing that's allowing us to apply these pencils, and that's what we're drawing on right here. A very firmly affixed white Brilliance ink, because it really dries really well on this type of surface. So you can see that it's starting to come around. It's looking a little bit richer. I've used some of this blue in my shadow areas, and you can see it just makes it a little bit richer, and the value contrast is getting a little bit more defined like that. Okay. All right, now this is going to go underneath a nighttime type of sky like this right here, okay? Now I still have all this white right in here, so what we'll do is we'll bring in to this area right in here some darker pigment inks, and when we'll frame off this lower section as well. So let's get to that. This is just a used black Brilliance ink applicator, i.e. a cotton ball, 100% cotton ball. And you just want to slowly take this in here, okay? In other words, don't go for like hard applications like that. Just see it as like almost like a charcoal powder that you're applying. That's kind of the sensibility, so that you can get this nice kind of gradually applied application of this tone right here. And we'll close off this top section a little bit more, and then we'll also bring it into our foreground waves. Now, in some cases, if we're applying this pigment ink over the top of kind of a waxy colored pencil, sometimes it might not apply as smoothly as you might want it to, but it works pretty good. It works good enough. This water-based pigment ink, it was made to be quick dry. Now it's not going to dry fast like a solvent ink or something like that, but it's able to apply onto a lot of different materials, dry and also adhere to them. Okay. And this is not to be mistaken with something like a VersaFine Clair pad from the same company, but the VersaFine Clair is a oil-based pigment ink, and of course I love those. There's a super rich, dark, and very detailed types of inks, but those are designed more for things like cardstocks, absorbent cardstocks, absorbent surfaces. All right, so see like this, we're kind of framing off the interior like this. And then we'll do this from this side. I flip it around so that I have easier access to this side. If I do this, I can't really see. My hand's in front of me, so always rotate and configure your artwork in a angle that's going to be most conducive for whatever application you're utilizing. A lot of people like to always have their card upright, which, you know, you can do. But if you have the ability to just kind of flip it around and use it, apply things in whatever angle you want, or you can do, then do that. Like this is always kind of a natural motion right here. And when you're using kind of the natural angles, the ergonomics of your body, your applications of media are always going to be a lot more smoother and graceful. You're going to be able to achieve the types of applications easier for what you're going after. All right, now one of the things that I didn't do, I don't think, in my previous video, I had a little bit of a horizon imagery in the form of the Palm Island, but on this one we're just going to have it just a horizon, just a blank horizon without anything on there. So I'm going to bring this area over here, and we'll have it kind of meet somewhat in the middle like that. I'm going to try to bring this in a little bit closer in here. And again, I'm trying to avoid like a big mark like that right in the middle here. So again, every time I re-ink this, I'm starting on the outside and tapping it around, and then I come onto the inside where I want it lighter. And so this is drier as well, so it's giving me a lighter application of media. And we'll kind of bring this around down here. What we're really doing right here is we're really trying to frame off and contrast areas of the card with kind of what's going on in the center, which is this exciting kind of real shimmery, moving light show of a, you know, dot pattern holographic right here. So it kind of contains everything. Otherwise, I mean, you can do it without the, you know, this kind of framing on here, but it makes for a really, really loud card, which, you know, is probably good for a lot of different applications, but for scenes, you know, if you want to go for a certain type of mood, it's always kind of benefits it to kind of contain certain areas like that a little bit more. So let's see what this looks like right here. All right, so seeing that kind of shimmer right on there. And then I have my moon up here, and I've cut that out of a piece of holographic like that. So it looks like the moonlight is the thing that's contributing to the color of the whatever reflected light. That's it in theory, though. I think it looked good with the white one as well, you know, like that. Let's see, this little area down here has color, and then the thing that's reflecting off of it doesn't. So I could always, you know, just take a hole punch and do a, you know, 1-inch hole punch of the holographic too, but I don't know. That was my first test of that one. I wanted to see what it would look like on this one. All right, so let's see. Let's go in here and bring in a little bit more texture. We have that kind of soft application, you know, with a cotton ball like this. Let's bring in some of those striations on the water's surface right in here. Like so. So you can kind of go back and forth between you know, cotton ball applications of pigment ink, and you can go back to your colored pencils here and just kind of, I don't know, switch back and forth depending on how things are kind of developing right here. So we have that. I don't know if you could see those white streaks kind of like within that space right there. Calypso, how are you? How are you doing tonight? Happy Sunday evening to you. Good to see you. All right, let's see. Let's break up this a little bit. We have this whole kind of shimmer coming down here. Let's break up that pattern a little bit through here a little bit more, okay? So I'll go with a little bit more shading in here. This dark blue is working out pretty good. I've usually used the lighter blue, but kind of this navy looks pretty good, I'm finding. Like about like so. Okay. But now, do you see how this wave in here, this cresting wave, this foam right here, it's all kind of a uniform value, right? It's because, you know, because when I was doing that, I couldn't see where that stamp was going to go, so we stamped this down here. I want a little bit more variation in there. We have variation in here going from dark to light, but like in these crashing waves in here, these cresting waves, there's not any variation. So, I mean, it looks fine like that, but I think it'll look better if we add a little bit of variety to this. Hey, thanks for dropping in. Have a good rest of evening, Deb. Thanks for saying hi. Hello, Linda. Just doing a second version of this one. I like that dot pattern holographic so much. I thought I would try another here, but I needed to practice down here a little bit more with it. The first one came out pretty good, though. I was surprised a little bit with how it, you know, that white pigment ink red on the dot pattern holographic on Friday night, so I thought, I better do another one of these to get a little practice in, just so I don't forget it, you know. I'll forget it, but you know, I'll have it down a little bit more by doing it a second time. All right, so I'm just hitting this white here. I'm not doing this white across the whole thing. I'm just kind of putting it here, here. It's right there. And let's put a little bit over here. So I'm just trying to vary the opacity and lightness a little bit. About like so, I guess. Okay. Okay, so you see that kind of, it broke up that pattern. We don't see that in this area as much, so we're oscillating that pattern. It's showing through a little bit, but you know, like that. I need to be a little bit darker in here, I think, huh? So that's the type of thing that I'm trying to, learn here with this paper. Or I don't know, whatever, this setting right here. Let's try this right here. Okay. Let's try this. A little bit of a... I'm not streaking this on the horizon, but it's just that area between, I don't know, whatever they call it, the impact zone, where the waves are kind of crashing or breaking, starting to break. So like that. So I'm kind of separating. I'm trying to separate it a little bit more. Yeah, something like that. I don't know if you can see that little tone right there. I think since we did that, we got to do it a couple other areas, though. Doing this kind of streaking kind of motion. Makes me a little bit nervous on this type of surface, but it seems to be going on pretty good. I guess as long as this isn't like sopping wet, you know. It applies pretty smoothly like that, which is good to know because that'll make it easier and faster to apply certain, I don't know, what are applications a little bit easier. Okay, let's see this right here. Yeah, see a little bit of a separation between these areas. Tweaks here. Let's see. It's got a little bit darker here. A little bit more framing. I got this new pack of holographic, and we'll have to see how that works out with the, I don't know, that little straw grassy type of holographic. It's so busy and loud. All right, there we go, like that. Yeah, I mean, isn't it surprising how we can use that? To me, that looked like a computer type of dot. I don't know, dot matrix, but I don't know. It reminded me of some kind of like digital type of thing, but for those little holographic or little sparkly little things like that, I think it works really good for the for a water type of scenario like that. Okay, so let's see here. Where should we put this moon? I'll put this moon like right down. Oh, there's a little bit of that moon reflected in that lighter area in the center like that. So that works out pretty good like that, right on that water. All right, now before I lay this down, I thought too, from Friday night, this top area could use a little bit more texturing. So let's go with the, like a, like a Milky Way style of a spray pattern with the Dr. Martens. This is a opaque watercolor. If anyone ever watches this, I was wondering what I'm splatter painting with. If you have some white gesso or, you know, correctional fluid, you can try something like that. Or you can just use a white gel pen or paint pen, you know, to create a bunch of stars too. This makes for a pretty fast and varied application of this type of effect right here. All right, so I have this at a bit of an angle like that. And I'm going a little bit closer because I want this spray pattern to be kind of a little bit more targeted than just an overall pattern right here. All right, so we get that right there. So it's a little bit more Milky Way-ish, like that. And you can see those like super fine little dots kind of show up too. It's not too busy when you look at it like that, but you can see the opacity of it with the use of the Dr. Martens bleed-proof white. The bleed-proof white is it's just like an uber opaque style of a paint, watercolor paint. I always mention this, but calligraphers like using it in their dip pen and brush pen lettering on darker types of surfaces. Those do have a little bit of a texture to them, so they're a little bit raised, but they're not so raised. I don't think if I lay this down, it's not going to be like these little pebbly areas on here, or it shouldn't be too much of it. But all right, let's lay this. I'm going to put this down fairly low on the horizon. Sticker paper, so you can utilize that sticker property. And we'll go, is that roughly center? Something like that, good enough. We'll lay this down. It's a pretty aggressive sticker paper too, so it should be pretty well affixed to that area like that. So we have this right here. Okay, I left that area up there too because I might do a stamp up there, a word stamp. And so it's dark enough and there's enough of an area up there. That spray pattern is somewhat varied. There's some dots that are a little bit larger and some that are smaller, but they're all pretty small. So I'm going to add a little bit of variation in here. I know you can't see a bunch of stars usually out when there's a full moon, but this is stamping, so artistic license for sure. So we have something like that. I put some of these stars a little bit closer to one another because we have this kind of internal I don't know, whatever habit of like spacing out when you start doing this, everything of like equal distance. So I have to kind of go in and purposefully, with more purposeful add purposeful randomness to it, the scene or the pattern a little bit more. All right, so that's what this is looking like that. Okay. And we got that glittery type of surface down here like that. And I thought what would be cool, let me see where this goes right here. I didn't know I'd be able to see the moon down there as well, as much as I can. I'm going to put these little dolphin like right down in here. Well, let me see what they would look like here. Yeah. Let me use this one right here. If I don't know if I want to use something or if I want to get the gist of it, I just stamp it to the side here, like that. And then I look at it again. I think that'll look pretty cool. I'm thinking about this. I often refer back to this movie poster from a movie that came out in the 80s. I think it was called The Big Blue. But I always like the movie poster. I like the movie too, but the movie poster had this guy swimming out in the ocean. I think it was under a full moon, and I think there was a dolphin jumping over him. So yeah, it's part of the movie, but I always kind of like that imagery. Okay, so I got that. So see, they're right within that moon down below like that. Okay, now let's give a lot of variation and crispness down below here as well. So let's go back to our Dr. Martin's bleed proof white. I'll squeegee out a lot of that ink because it's going to be applied in a very targeted area. And you don't, even when you're doing a big area of it, you just want a little bit of that on your tip here. And then you're just kind of releasing a couple little bristles at a time. And I'll try to get it. I'm really going in close here. And I'm just releasing a couple bristles at a time. Sometimes you don't know which way your spray pattern is going to go, using a toothbrush like this. And so we get something like that right there. Maybe for something so targeted like this, maybe just using the acrylic paint pen is better. But I like to go for a little bit more variety and variation. That this somewhat a little bit unpredictable process right here tends to do. Okay, so see like those little things like that. I know a little splatter up there, but sometimes that looks good to go outside of the area just to bring a little bit of texturing to other areas. And then what you do is you go back in just like the sky type of area, and then you can refine it more with some additional. My camera doesn't know where to focus on with this super reflective material. And then we'll just go in here and I'll bring in some additional textures, contrast, and movement into this area so you can see a little bit of that like this, right on the crest of the wave. Makes things look a little bit more three-dimensional, I think, when you do these little touches like this. And you bring in additional texturing. I guess this is kind of, in a very micro way, a little bit of a, it's a little bit three-dimensional with this little beads of paint sticking up off the surface. Put a little bit of splashing water around the our two little characters. In the previous scene, I used the baby sea turtles in here, which is, this surface right here is really great with those baby sea turtles, because I think people tend to see that moment of those baby sea turtles hatching and kind of going out to sea as like a magical moment. So having this metallic kind of shimmer in there is kind of nice. Okay, so this is how this looks right here. You see it like this, it's like super busy, but that's with like all of my studio lights on it like that. This is kind of a little bit more the gist of kind of what I see in front of me like this. Okay, and you can see that little shimmer like that on the horizon, like that. Oh, look at that moon up there too, changing color like that. That's pretty fun. And then let's go in and add in a little bit of extra foreground here. And we're going back to our black brilliance pad. With the reed stamp, I usually have my pressure down here, don't have it up here on the edge to get like this big, you know, kind of more cattail looking tips like that. You don't want them to smash them down like that. I use this at a bit of an angle like this, kind of taller, like that. And then I start rotating this with each additional impression. I start going down a little bit lower too, like this. And so you get that here, here, and then here like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact. I mean, sometimes it varies if I have a taller or a longer foreground to stamp in. Okay, so high, a little bit lower at an angle, pointed in, and again like this, and I don't know, go like that or something like that. So you get this varied foreground like that. And if you want to leave a little bit of space in here for the viewer to enter the scene, you can do that. Black top piece calms the sparkles down. Yeah. We're taming those, we're taming that super busy action, huh, Linda? But then, see, like this is what I didn't do. I used a lot of that material in here, so I can't see it as much in here. Well, okay, I don't know. Maybe I changed my mind. I can't see it at certain angles in there as much. But I wanted to leave a little bit more in this area open, so I'd used a little bit less pigment ink in that space right in there. I like the holographic moon. I think looks pretty decent up there. Yeah, I think I'm going to do like some sort of word stamp up here. I'll do it in white or something like that. But anyway, there's my second go at this type of combination right here. Seaside Coves with the dot patterned holographic. Again, you know, it's always mentioned this, but just a few years ago, I never would have used. My camera doesn't know where to focus on this with all this reflected glittery light in here. Okay, anyway, like that. Yeah, I like that moon reflection in there. I think this would be a pretty dramatic opening for someone's card like that. You know, it may be kind of interesting. I think for this card right here too, just to keep it in thing, I think I would do like some stars out here, you know, just like a word stamp in here or something like that. Whatever it might be. Happy birthday. Wish you were here. I don't know. This is kind of like a little charming little magical type of thing. I think this could be used as like a get well soon type of thing, you know, and someone opens this up like this, you know, I think that would be pretty cool. But yeah, I really like that in terms of a presentation and the whatever, the reveal, I guess, moment. So anyways, I don't know, busy holographics. I guess I'm more of a fan of it than I was originally, just because I didn't know what I would do with, you know, some of those types of patterned holographics. But now I have a little bit better gist of it. I like that moon in there. Oh, look at that moon kind of reflecting some of that patterning off of the lower portion too. So I like how they kind of reflect off of each other like that. There's a little bit of the greenish tinge in there, like that yellow, and you can see that yellow down in there, like so. Anyways, pretty fun. Yeah. I'll have to think about doing more things with like that moon. I have these different phases of the moon, and I think it'd be cool to go like a full moon, but plus the like the gibbous moons and the crescent moons off to the side or something like that in this holographic material. Huh. Sounds like a full page scene to me, Linda. I've never used a holographic moon. It's time, Linda. Yeah. I think holographic any types of sky figures, huh? Or, you know, if we take and we have whatever type of holographic, it could be the pattern types or just the regular types. I think the Milky Way Large or the Starbirth stamped on to that holographic, I think that might be a pretty killer application of the holographic. You know, just sky figures in general. You can use the holographic and stamp. I don't know if I have my Milky Way around here, but I'm looking on the floor right behind me. But just having all those colors shining through the that Milky Way stamp or the Starbirth stamp, something like that would be pretty cool. Yeah. Especially in these types of horizon cards like this. Oh my gosh, there's so many things to kind of play around with and experiment with. All right, anyway, Seaside Cove holographic experiment number 2. God, I like that. I like that moon, like that in that lower section, like that, reflecting against those dolphin, or just on the water surface. Doesn't have to have the dolphin like that. But yeah, kind of makes it like a little jewel, a jeweled piece like that. Speaking of jeweled pieces, like putting a couple little clear crystals amongst the stars like that might be pretty cool too. Might be going a little bit too nuts with it too, but those tumbled kind of iridescent glass pieces down here, but like just glowing like a couple pieces of those glass down here for a real 3-dimensional type of thing. Doesn't make for the folding of the card if you're going to mail it to someone very good, because it might indent, you know, those opposite areas in there, but it would sure give it a kind of a cool additional 3-dimensional type of sparkle on there. Anyway, yeah, definitely into the bling these days, where I maybe wasn't so much in the very early years. All right, everyone, thanks for checking out the card. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the end result and the whatever, the concept. If you have any questions about the process, drop me a note in the comment section. All right, have a great rest of evening.